Good afternoon. I'm Kurt Wilson, Mayor of Roswell. Welcome to Chats with the Mayor. We're here at the lovely Mimosa Hall, and today I have two very special guests. I have the Director of the Department of Recreation and Parks and Historic and Cultural Affairs, Mr. Jeff Leatherman, and I have newly elected Councilmember Will Morthland, one of my great colleagues. And these two gentlemen are a big reason that we're here today to talk about all the great things that are happening in recreation and parks and historical and cultural affairs. And there's a lot to talk about. It's probably the subject that most of us talk about the most in Roswell. And Jeff and Will, thank you for being with me today. It's really great to have you.
Absolutely.
And we happen to be in one of the historic assets. This is really cool. We're here at Mimosa Hall. What a great place to be. And Will, I know you're just coming off a nice 2-week vacation in Hawaii and came back to Roswell just to do this with us. You know, when you and I got elected back in November and we started talking about the various departments, you were very quick to say, I want recreation and parks and historical and cultural affairs. You said, I want that. That's what I want to do. Please let me be, that's my baby.
Absolutely.
Can you kind of, why'd you want that?
That was easy. And the reason when we got down to discussing all the different items and all the different departments, I said the one that I'm closest with, the one that I have the most experience, the one that I'm in every single day is going to be the Parks and Rec. That is going to be the department that I feel as if I can give the most to as compared to be the most comfortable with. And so it was a good marriage there of experience plus desire to help. And that's why I really wanted to be with the Recreation, Parks, and Historical and Cultural Affairs. Thinking back to the time that I've been in Roswell, my kids with all the recreation that they do through the various sport activities, through the Cub Scout activities, which now has gone into Boy Scout activities, it was just a very, very easy choice. And so that's why I didn't have to get too hard, but that's why I decided, that was going to be the one that I really, really wanted.
You're an active participant and user of
Absolutely.
the Rex and Parks program, right?
Absolutely.
How old are your kids?
Richard just turned 13 and Claire is 10. Richard is soccer, Claire is gymnastics, Richard is the scouting program, but then we're also in the parks doing all the hiking with the trails. Very, very easy decision.
You know, you've been very outspoken, and what people don't know about you is behind the scenes, everybody thinks you're very quiet, that you don't have much to say, and you're very reserved. But behind the scenes, well, we can't get you to stop talking.
That's a nice little facade I like to put out there, yes.
But you do have a lot of things to say about recreation and parks.
Yes.
And you have a lot of dreams and a lot of aspirations, I think, like a lot of our residents.
Absolutely.
And you chose this for a very specific reason. You wanted to be involved in this. Not just obviously because of your experience, but what you hoped, what you aspired for recreation park. Can you talk about a little bit what you hoped us to get done?
So the plan has always been to get involved with the Recreation Parks program and to make it the best it can be. It is a great program. It has solid leadership as it stands. It was a very easy decision, but going forward, I want to make a real positive difference in the city. And one of the key attributes when a new family moves to town is they look at safety, they look at education, and they look at the Parks and Recreation departments. And that is where if I can help make a difference, and if there's something I can do to give some of my experience towards that end goal of bettering the Parks and Rec system, that was the decision.
Well, I can tell you, it's been fun to watch you work in the last 6 months, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, of how much you have gotten done in the last 6 months. It's really impressive. Jeff, I know a lot of people may know you or have seen you, sure, may have heard of you. I don't think our residents know how lucky we are to have such a talented person running our Recreation and Parks and Historical Cultural Affairs Department. And then where you came from, and I've gotten to know you, and you're incredibly impressive. You bring an incredible vita to the city, but more importantly, the breadth of knowledge and your leadership style has been really, really impactful. And it's been fun to watch that over the last 6 months. But tell everybody a little bit about who you are and where you came from. How did we get you?
Sure. So it will be 4 years coming up almost in a couple of weeks in July when I started, 4 years ago. So one of my anniversaries is coming up. And then I have another anniversary to my wife in just a couple of weeks. We've been married for 20 years. We've got 4 boys. And so like Councilmember Morthland, just my job is also our lifestyle. We've got 4 boys. They are 16, 14, 12, and 9. And so we do everything from our adaptive programs to our soccer programs to our gymnastics programs. We're in our art programs, culinary programs. I'm a part-time taxi driver for the kids along with my wife. And we came out of California, and really it was about where do we want to raise our kids. And that's what drew us to Roswell first, and also to this position within the Recreation Parks Historic and Cultural Affairs Department. And I have experience in local recreation and managing ball fields and soccer fields and the athletic programs, as well as trails and river park systems. And this position 4 years ago has the combination of both. And I'm sure we'll get to talk about the Chattahoochee River and how that is anchored along with our historic assets and our parks and facilities in our community. And we're so lucky. I'm lucky as a director, but also as a resident here in our community, that we have all of these assets that draw people into our community, keep them here for generations, and celebrate everything that it is to be wonderful about Roswell. So I'm lucky professionally and personally here in the community.
How big is your department? Folks don't know how many employees there are, how big the budget is, how wide it is. People don't know actually how big it is.
Right. So we've got about 106, with this new budget, about 106 full-time staff members. We just added 4 new full-time staff members with the budget that Mayor and Council just recently approved. And that went to some of our priorities like trails maintenance and some of our art programs. So that's on the full-time side. We have about 30 part-time staff members on a regular basis, and then we employ about 150 seasonal temporary staff members for all of our summer camp programs. That is about 12 to 13 weeks. We run just shy of about 7,000 kids through our summer programs, and it takes kind of that second generation. Almost a lot of our kids that participated, we get to hire when they're 15, 16, and 17 years old, and they help us kind of run those legacy programs that they participated in as kids. So it's pretty fun to see.
You know, one of the things that I think always is a great measure of a man or a woman or any of us is what we do when nobody's looking. And my first time to meet you, and you probably I hope you don't remember this, and actually was with Will. We were at a campaign event we had actually my second time to meet you. We were at a campaign event in your subdivision at the pool area.
Right.
And I go to use the restroom, and there's a guy in there who's cleaning the bathroom, and it's Jeff Leatherman. And I say that is because I think that speaks so highly of any person, particularly somebody in your position, because you're a high-level guy. I've gotten to know you. I've gotten to know how wickedly smart you are. I've got to know the width and the breadth of information that you handle and manage and the teams that you lead. And it speaks volumes that you're willing to clean a bathroom and make sure that and keep a standard to it. And I think that speaks very highly of any man or any woman. I just want to tell you that, Jeff. It was a great second impression, and that sticks with me. So I really was appreciative, and I think anybody should be impressed by that. It speaks highly of you.
So I've actually got a story to share on top
yes,
of that.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
This is one of my favorite stories. When Richard was playing in the under 10 soccer league with Roswell Parks and Recreation, we were Team Mexico. And, it was not Team Mexico, it was Team San Jose. And that was the next year up. So Team San Jose was playing, was it Team Boston?
You're right.
And this was our first game of the year, and I'm over there introducing myself to the opposing coach. Turns out the opposing coach of our under 10 first game of the year is Jeff Leatherman. Jeff is coaching a soccer game. So that was my first interaction with him, and I gained a lot of respect for him from that point.
But Will, there's another side to that story. I remember you telling me afterwards you were very upset with the refereeing and thought it was very partial to Jeff's team. I remember that. You were very upset about it.
Jeff said write a complaint.
We do hear that a lot, right?
Send an email.
Send an email.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, the thing, Jeff, you hear a lot of good, but you also hear complaints.
Sure.
And the thing I know that we probably as electeds hear the most about, and I will tell you probably the things I get most feedback on from fellow residents, and Will, I'm guessing this is true for you, is about our parks, right? I get more feedback on that. And we're a gold medal. I don't have my gold medal pin with me today. I apologize. I mean, we're a gold medal system from 2017. We have a tremendous Parks and Recs Commission that does a tremendous body of work. We have a lot of people invested in this community, in our recreation and park system, and our cultural and historical affairs.
Yes.
Gigantic number of people. People really care because it matters to the quality of life. But, there's some things we got to talk about, and there's some dreams and some hopes and some aspirations practically. So let's talk about what we did this year in the budget. What did we do that might impact things differently on a positive trajectory that maybe we haven't done that we needed to be doing? What did we do this year that would make a difference, you think?
You want to tackle it?
I'll come in second.
Okay, fair enough. I think the first and foremost, and I'll just rattle off kind of the top level items, but there's some nuances within the budget of some changes that you made too that I think people may or may not notice right away, but sets our future up for a tremendous amount of success. First and foremost, a tremendous amount of maintenance and deferred maintenance was allocated in the budget. $2 million specifically to East Roswell Park, with another $500,000 on top of that for the dog park at East Roswell Park. So that alone at $2.5 million worth of investment into that park facility, targeted at things that matter to our residents. When you start talking about what's the experience, and you mentioned restrooms, to me that's one of those experiences that I want our community to be able to walk away after being in our park and saying, you know what, we live in a great place. I had a great experience. They were clean. They were safe. And those investments, just like the $2.5 million, starts to address some of those issues that we're hearing from a feedback perspective. Also, just general system-wide maintenance, just over $1 million, $1.1 million, $2 million was invested in our system-wide maintenance of our parks and facilities. And this council tackled that on right out of the gate. It was one of my top requests, and I remember going through the budget conversations, and it wasn't even really a conversation. Sometimes you kind of have to wrestle a little bit for the money, and that line item was kind of a given in our budget of, okay, what's the next question that you have? And to me, that just really demonstrated this council and this mayor's intent on investing in our parks and facilities. And then just behind that, you have things like playground repairs and playground replacement, that as you look at the next generation of 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds coming up that will be hopefully lifelong Roswell residents, where do they have a safe place to play, and replacing playgrounds. But then we also have some positions that were tied directly to maintenance and trail maintenance. Probably one of the things that we hear on a regular basis is, as soon as it rains, how are we dealing with the mud puddles? How are we dealing with erosion? How are we dealing with runoff and settlement? And we have a 3-person crew now that has been authorized by this mayor and council that will start in October, and they will be focused 100% on our trails and maintaining our trails. About 32 miles of trails to maintain in the city. And so just right off the bat, in those kind of few examples, it's about maintenance of our facilities. What are our residents looking for? And this mayor and council took that on in a real way in our budget this year.
Yeah, I think the big thing that I'm most excited about seeing is that deferred maintenance piece get addressed, because that is the bulk of the emails and the communication that we're receiving is, hey, the fields are in rough shape, or the trails are in rough shape, or the parking lot, or the rest. Well, everything he just said is in rough shape, and here's why. And then we start getting the photos, and the photos are not pretty. So that's the big part that I would like to really commend and see go forward. And that these funds really get allocated to the best part of recreation and parks is that deferred maintenance piece. Because when you bring in people from outside, that's going to be one of the things that they take away and they remember. Was it clean? Was it usable? Was it family friendly? And this is what we're addressing.
Will, would you say that there's got to be a commitment at the elected level, a political will, that, because look, let's face it, most of us residents don't get into details of the budget. We want great parks, right? We want it to be great, and we want it to continue to be maintained, and we want to take our families there and our children there, right? And then we put the responsibility on the elected leadership and on the staff leadership to say, please make sure it's handled, right? And so they don't want to get into the details, but there's two words here that I think that I hope you'll teach us, and you'll teach our citizens, our fellow residents, and I hope you'll teach elected bodies in this city forevermore to remove two words from the lexicon. And it's deferred maintenance. That when you build an asset, park, right? You build a field, build a bathroom, right? That you put on it a trajectory of how long you're going to have that asset in place. And that two things should occur. One is that you understand that every year you're going to spend money, i.e. operational maintenance cost, to keep that park or that bathroom or whatever that you spent that money on to keep it in shape, right? And that's operational maintenance, and that's a non-negotiable budgetary item. It has to be done. You cannot defer it. Deferred maintenance. So the first word I would ask is that I hope that if you're any part of the leadership going forward in the city forevermore, is that we will remove deferred maintenance from the lexicon to ever be considered, because it's too easy to do. It's too easy to move that money aside, but it's so important, and it shows up. And the reason we're talking about that in the second one is, and I'll come back to it in a minute, it's because we've built this incredible park system. And yet we've got to continue to invest in it. And I think our residents understand that. I think our residents are saying, well, of course you keep investing in it. So we have a responsibility to make sure we keep doing that. Absolutely. And to lead the charge on that. And can you talk about it, Jeff? I think there's a lot of things that you mentioned in the budget this year that may help you illuminate some things that are going to help the trajectory of where we're going with Parks and Recs and cultural and historical affairs. Can you talk about those as well?
Yeah, I think, as we look to the future, we've had the River Park Master Plan, and we look at the Chattahoochee River. We've had that on, I would say, the planning books, if you will, since 2016. And since I arrived, and as I said earlier, to me, the combination of river parks and recreation and cultural and historic assets is a blend that I honestly think you would be hard pressed to find anywhere else in the nation, in a city of 100,000 people, if not even bigger. And this mayor and council has committed just over $6 million to ASAN, and that's phase 1 and phase 2, which is new trails and new improvements down along the river, but also has a riverbank protection component to it. And also has some other components associated with looking at silt and sedimentation along the Chattahoochee River and the long-term impacts of what does that actually mean for us as citizens within Roswell, but also for our visitors that come to our community, and understanding what the opportunities that potentially dredging will have for us as we move forward. And all of that was a component of this year's budget. I also see and hear the council really intentionally talking about recognizing that even 20 and 30 years ago, we invested in a significant amount of park land and park infrastructure. And now we're coming up into that question of, is it time to truly invest in some of those long-term replacements, not the deferred maintenance components, because there's a certain point in time where you can't maintain something anymore and you want to really just reset it. Because as we go and travel around different sports facilities, and I'll be with our community members on the teams that we're involved with, and for us to walk onto a field, you have one of two potential scenarios. Sometimes it's, wow, this is really nice. I wish we had something like this in Roswell. And really what they're saying is this is a new shiny park or facility that was recently developed or recently overhauled. Or you have, gosh, this really is pretty tired and worn out. I'm glad ours don't look like this in the city of Roswell. And I want to have more conversations like the other of, man, we've got some great facilities. We start to take care of that reinvestment. We start to look forward to the future of generational investment. And that comes with an intentional conversation like this mayor and council is having, both along the river and into our existing park facilities. And I'm excited to be a part of that.
Will, you want to address that?
He hit on something that is really big time for us with the city of Roswell, and that is the dredging piece on the Chattahoochee. And if we as a city get this right, which I have no doubt we won't, but if we get this right, we set the standard for all of the communities going upstream and downstream to follow our example on how to deal with the silt and sedimentation that has come in. That opens up so many avenues for us, and I'm excited about being the industry leader on that.
Well, I don't want to sound patronizing, but I want to tell both of you, I can't tell you how proud of you I am on this dredging thing. I don't expect everybody to understand dredging or know about dredging or care about dredging, but the city had dredging operations up to 2008, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, even a little bit beyond that.
A little bit beyond that. And so we got out of the dredging business, and I'm paraphrasing, and we've been out of it since. And the consequences have been is that the water continues to get shallower, and we get more and more flooding, right? And that will continue to be exacerbated unless we do something about it. And to go through, I think you have 7 regulatory agencies, if I remember correctly, that you have to basically go through to reinitiate this process. I understand why dredging, I wish we'd never stopped dredging, but I can understand why the dredging, and that was exactly what I heard when I brought up the River Master Plan, by the way, as a politician, somebody running for office. Right. You'll never get it done because you have to dredge. I only heard it once, but I heard about somebody at least who understood the problem. And as a consequence, people who understood the problem just stayed away from it, right? Say, well, and I think, Will, to your massive credit, you said, well, we can't do the River Master Plan if we don't figure out how to dredge. If we don't, we're wasting residents' dollars long-term unless we figure out a solution to this equation. And so what you two have done on this dredging equation and pursuing it and bringing it to a reality, I can't tell you, I'm really proud of you. I mean, it's amazing. And it's not been a small task. It's been a gigantic task. Saying it makes it like so simple. The work that you guys have put into it, the hurdles you've got around, it's incredible. Well, and I can't tell you, I'm so excited. I know, again, dredging's not exciting. It's exciting to me because I know that if we make that happen, the River Master Plan, it gets, not only becomes a reality, but we don't waste it away over time. I mean, it's just smart, a good, smart investment. You guys have shown real leadership on that.
Well, let me further that in saying, when the residents reached out to me, when the liaison ships were assigned, and Roswell Recreation and Parks were provided to me, the residents started reaching out, and the ones that I went to meet, they all took me to the Chattahoochee. Everybody else, I was able to do some kind of phone call or some kind of email, and we were talking about trails, we were talking about fields, but the ones that wanted to meet, the ones that wanted to take me on a tour, all took me to the river, and they all showed me the embankment, they all showed me all the things that were deteriorating, and that's where we got involved and said dredging is got to happen. And it was not my idea. It was the residents that were bringing it forward, and that's just something that I got behind and started cheerleading, and all the work and all the expertise has come from Jeff and his office. So I'm thrilled to be along for the ride here.
Big deal. Thank you for you guys like just pushing and making this happen. Let's talk about the River Master Plan, ACE Phase 1 and 2, and let's talk about what else potentially might need to happen and what needs to happen for that to happen. You guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you probably won't get me any more excited than about when we start to build, new parks and investing in our parks and facilities. But the river, while we've had generations of investment, and we go back 20 and 30 and maybe even closer to 40 years in some case, this is our opportunity in developing a smart river park system that allows people to access the river. And it's one of the few places really downstream of Lake Lanier where you've got access that isn't managed by the federal government. There's a handful of county parks and some other locations, but this is a 6-mile stretch that our community, our visitors really get to access, interact with. And the investment, not only in ASAN, we have a stormwater garden, we have a children's play area, we've got trails, we've got fitness equipment that we're going to be installing there. But then we're also going to be providing components to be able to get down onto the river, protect the riverbank. And then beyond that, you've got investment at Don White Park, which includes and expands some of those trail systems. We start to look at our concession operations and cafe operations, the potential for other resources down along the river. As you start to work your way downstream, you've got Riverside Park, kind of what I would call the anchor of the river park system, rehabbing our stage. We've got wonderful outdoor concerts. We had a great Juneteenth event just this last weekend down there where the community got to gather and really celebrate Juneteenth in a really meaningful way. And Mayor, thank you for attending that event. And to me, I get excited about thinking, what can that stage environment be? What can that outdoor amphitheater be? How can we take what is kind of some older restroom facilities and really build them up to something where people feel confident and comfortable coming down to the river for our Riverside Sounds concert series or running a 5K. And then as you work down to Azalea, probably some of our biggest challenges there, because that's the location where the river really narrows. We've got some significant riverbank erosion. And the master plan and this conversation with this council really talks about not only investing in our parks, but that environmental investment of protecting our river. And in all my conversations with you, Mayor, and with this council, both are equally valuable and important and are contemplated and evaluated in that master plan. So I'm excited and working on those future investments. And the reality is it is an investment. We've got probably another $25 million even after the $6 million that you all have allocated this year for investment in the river park system. And so
for the river park, exactly, by the way. You need another $25 million for the river park.
Yes. But that's so exciting because you think about all the visitation, and just kind of one of the fun stats that I like to use is the boardwalk system that we have down along the river. We see about 500,000 trips a year in that system. Now, that's not just Roswell residents. We know that it's people coming and visiting our community from our neighborhoods. We hope that they come and enjoy our restaurants and visit community members and hopefully neighbors. But we know that that's also part of our economic development strategy that really draws people into community. And so that investment, while significant from a dollar perspective, I think brings great value to our community.
Well said. And Will, I'm being told that our time is getting cut short here. So I want to. I know that you do this a lot. I think our fellow residents would be proud to know how hard you work at this and how much time you spend at this, and spend time with Jeff and spend time in our historical culture assets, and just you work at this all the time, and you have a full-time job, so it's amazing. But I'll tell you, for example, on Monday morning, and I know you do this a lot. I'll have two friends. I think we'll all be together. But I have two friends that jerked me by the shirt and said, "You got to come see these parks," right? Because they're not happy. They're not happy about the status of where the parks are, and they want us to do something about that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So, back to our favorite term, deferred maintenance, or are we trying to turn something new from an old? And that's really, having a good marriage between what are the expectations for the city. Once we come forward with our forward vision on everything that we have looking down the scope, I think folks will be very excited around what we're planning. Holding the cards a little close to the chest here. I don't want to jump off and say too much, but I think.
Well, feel free. Speak your mind. That's what this is about.
I think they'll be very excited about the things that are coming down the road.
Is there something that you're going to need from your fellow residents potentially?
Understanding, a little bit of patience, because what we're doing and this deferred maintenance piece that we keep touching on is just like owning a home that you have never painted. Well, at some point you're going to have rotten wood that's going to need replacing. You're going to have to replace your roof. You have to do these certain things. We're in the middle of really going in and doing that deep dive right now. It's going to take a little time to bring it back to life, but as soon as this seed grows, you're going to see an amazing plant that's going to bear fruit for many, many generations.
Well said, Will. I wish I could, it's amazing. I guess we spent 30 minutes here, and we just touched the very top of the glass, right? There's so much to talk about in these departments, and so much people need to know about, I think would like to hear about. But I want to say, Jeff, thanks so much. Thanks so much for your leadership. Will, thank you so much. Thanks for your leadership. And I'd like to say thanks to everybody for joining us. I had the great pleasure of having Jeff Leatherman, our Director of Recreation and Parks and Cultural and Historical Assets or Affairs, forgive me, and my colleague, Councilmember Will Morthland, who's the liaison from the City Council to Jeff's department. They do a great job. They do a great job for us as residents. I thank you for being with us, and thank you for being Chats with the Mayor.